Hi, I'm going to go over a very sad story about a traffic accident in Beverly Hills, California. This case involves a young man, Brenden, B-R-E-N-D-E-N, Khuri, K-H-U-R-I. It was his birthday, and his father decided to give him a very expensive car. The car cost, according to the records, $517,000, and this was his gift from his dad. In June of 2020, Brenden had turned 17, and his father said Brenden was his most valuable gift, and he wanted to give him something very, very special. So Brenden had a Lamborghini, and this car can go very fast. It's not known whether Brenden had his license yet, or whether he had taken his driving test, or if he had had any special training on driving such a powerful car. But he was free to use this car as he wanted. And he decided to take it out one day, and allegedly he was racing an Audi when he hit the side of a Lexus, which was driven by a young lady, age 32, who was a secretary driving home from work. Her name was Monique Munoz, M-U-N-O-Z. And she recently, in 2019, had graduated from college herself. She was driving this Lexus sedan, and unknown whether or not it was hers or whether it was a family car. But the impact with Brenden's Lamborghini almost tore the Lexus in half. The Lexus was totaled, and Monique Munoz was dead. The Audi, which was allegedly being raced by the Lamborghini, was not involved in the accident, but it was there at the scene of the accident when the police arrived. The Lamborghini was also totaled, according to a picture I saw, but I don't know. Brenden suffered brain injuries, according to his parents, and was in the hospital, but he had no scars or cuts from the accident. It was claimed that no one from Brenden's family apologized to the Munoz family until March of 2021. The collision occurred on February 17th, 2021. Yet, James, that's Brenden's father, claimed that Brenden and his family were very, very remorseful about Monique Munoz's death. According to the Daily Mail, LA prosecutors alleged that Brenden Khuri must have been going approximately 106 miles an hour at the time of impact. Brenden had graduated from El Rodeo High School in 2018. His parents are divorced. His mother is remarried, and I'm not sure. The article I saw in the Daily Mail did not say whether or not his father is remarried, but he lives in an $8 million mansion in Beverly Hills. Because Brenden had head injuries from the collision, Brenden was in the hospital, and then he was sent home to remain home for in-house custody until he goes to trial. Well, living in an $8 million mansion is really no punishment for a 17-year-old while he's awaiting trial. So far, I don't think Brenden has really suffered anything from his accident. Does he really have brain injury, or is that just a way of trying to appeal to the court that he needs medical care, can't go to prison, be much better off staying at home and given some sort of delayed punishment or just at-home parole or something like that, some lenient sentence. It's notable that when he got the present from his dad, Brenden's mother said that was not a good idea to give a young child that kind of car, And allegedly his stepdad also said that this was just an accident waiting to happen. And I presume it's because the car is much too powerful for a 17-year-old. All people, once they get their driver's license, have times when they have to think fast in a regular car and maybe get into a small accident. But if you're driving a very powerful car, you may not have the time to think, and you may not have the reflexes, experience, and knowledge as to what to do when you come into a dangerous area. So it was really irresponsible for the father to give this kid a car. At one point, they seemed to be calling this 17-year-old a kid, and at another point, they're giving him a car which would be very powerful for any adult to handle, and especially if the child had no training as to how to handle racing cars or rules of the road or rules about drinking and driving and punishments that are there for people who violate driving rules and regulations. It was also notable that Brenden and his father, James, would race motorbikes in the streets of Beverly Hills, and they did that for quite a while, and they also did go-kart racing together. So Brenden was used to enjoying racing with his father, and perhaps when he got this car from his father, it was intended as another racing event that they could enjoy. Brenden's father, it seems, collects Lamborghinis and likes to race them, and in his photos that were shown in the Daily Mail, he had about 3 or 4 different types of Lamborghinis that he was very proud to show off with pictures, and I'm told he was showing them off on Instagram. He even on Instagram posted that he beat in a Lamborghini 2 motorbikes which were driven by 2 men, and he had a picture of the 2 men on motorbikes posted in his Instagram slot, and he said, and he only had 1 drink. So he was boasting about drinking and racing on the streets of Los Angeles. You know, this is very unbelievable, and this is why I am so against leniency for drivers like this, because I know when I drive for an errand, when I go to the supermarket, when I pick up a child, when I'm doing various things in my life that I have to do that make me go onto the street, I do not want to meet somebody who is a speed demon, recklessly turning corners, recklessly going through stoplights and stop signs and all kinds of things at high speed where I'm not anticipating or I haven't had prior notification that this racing activity is going on. And people who train their kids to drive like this, I think, should be held responsible. His father knew he had trained his child to do racing in the streets of Los Angeles and really had not equipped him to be respectful of other people's rights on the streets, the dangers of drinking and driving, and the possibility that people could be killed with these huge, huge cars. So they're very powerful, and if they hit somebody, there's going to be a death. Will our courts go very lenient on this boy and just give him a few months? I think he can get 9 months in juvenile custody for doing this sort of manslaughter. But should he be, because he'll be 18 when he goes to court. So I think he's going to court in June of 2021, and he'll be 18. So he is eligible to be held as an adult and not as a juvenile, even though the accident occurred when he was 17 and technically a juvenile. But we've seen in many past cases where people who are 16, 17, and 18 are held to the standards of an adult and sentenced in adult court with adult regulations and not given the leniency of being a juvenile. There are some kids in jail who have been there since they were young and have practically life sentences. So this is very serious, and although the father says he will never in his life drive, this kid was raised on racing and driving, so of course he's going to be driving again, illegally or legally, whether it's going to be someplace we can trace him or whether he's doing it on a sneak under somebody else's license, and his father has the money to kind of do this stuff, as can be shown that he's been given special treatment by being able to stay in the hospital and avoid having to go to court. He was arraigned in the hospital, and being able to get home custody instead of being arrested for causing the death of Miss Munoz. So this will be a case for us to follow. How honest are our courts? How much safety do we have in the streets? What's going to happen to Brenden for his gross negligence and his lack of responsibility? Even if sentenced as an adult, Brenden would probably only face 1 to 6 years in prison for vehicular manslaughter. Just because his father is extremely wealthy, is he going to escape all repercussions? More than likely, the father will move the kid to some foreign country for a number of years where he can drive and he won't have to be under American laws, and that same recklessness will occur. I'm sure he will have more problems with his driving habits and his lack of responsibility in these sorts of situations. So I'm very serious and very concerned about this whole situation and others like it. We have a lot of people in the United States who are driving with special privileges and who are not held responsible for the accidents and deaths that they cause during their reckless driving. And we need to start making a change and making sure we all have safer streets. If your child is crossing the street and Brenden comes racing down the street, violating a red light or a stop sign or doing a two-wheel turn, you don't want your child there. You don't want to be there. You don't want anyone that you know or even people you don't know to be in his way. But we can't protect ourselves from these things if people are just feeling above the law because they have money.